Who better to lead the love list for pass catchers this week, Barry? A.J. Brown, a little motivation from the Phillies. Who would have thought? But the love list here for pass catchers starts with A.J. Brown. 30.5% target share this season, 7+ targets in every game, Matthew.
Yeah, he's been nothing short of phenomenal. Coming off the bye, they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. I always like players coming off of a bye, especially when they get 2 weeks to prepare for a Pittsburgh secondary that's allowing a 231 yards per game to opposing wide receiver. That's most in the NFL over the last 4 weeks. They've given up the second most deep receptions in that stretch as well. And so A.J. Brown, who has a 30% target share this year for the undefeated Eagles. Multiple red zone targets in 3 of his past 4 games. Just locked in wide receiver 1. He comes in at wide receiver 7 for me this week. All in on A.J. Brown. Should have a monster game again against the Steelers.
An impressive return for DeAndre Hopkins. No rest for him at all. You're back from suspension. You're back in the fold. DeAndre Hopkins, a 48% target share in his first game back. What more do you need to see? When D-Hop's right, when he's healthy, he's Arizona's offense.
Yeah, wide receivers who have seen 7 or more targets against the Vikings this year are averaging 17 fantasy points per game. Over the last 4 weeks, Vikings allowing the 7th most yards per game to wide receivers. Both pretty good offenses, 2 defenses that have sometimes struggled. I actually think this should be a high-scoring game. It's one of the higher over-unders on the slate as well. So Hopkins comes in at wide receiver 14 for me. Be interesting to see if he gets that kind of massive target share, if you have more of a package for Robbie Anderson. If he's out there on more routes, and do they try to dump it off to Rondell Moore a little bit more? So anyway, but yes, DeAndre Hopkins, you're starting him. You're starting him immediately.
Cris Olave has been far and away.
You probably already started him last week, but just he's locked in.
If you had any questions, they should be answered. Cris Olave has been far away the most productive rookie wide receiver this season, despite the Saints' carousel at quarterback, and it does sound like Andy Dalton is starting this week for over a healthy Jameis Winston.
Correct.
Cris Olave, wide receiver 10 in points per game since week 2. He has a 30% target share over that stretch. Where does he come in for you this week, Barry?
Yeah, wide receiver 16. He's locked in as a wide receiver 2. 5 straight games with at least 80 yards or a touchdown. Vegas has allowed multiple touchdowns to wide receivers in 2 of their last 3 games. They've given the 6th most yards per game to wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. And so with a banged-up, receiving core around him, there does seem to be a connection between Andy Dalton and Cris Olave. Basically, when Andy Dalton goes back to throw, he's either throwing it to the other team or Cris Olave. And so you like those odds. It's true, right? It's factually correct. Like, he only has eyes for Olave or the other team. That's pretty much, those are his 2 reads. As Andy Dalton goes through his progressions, it's like, is Cris Olave covered? Let me throw it to the other team. And then if the other team isn't open, then he'll try to find Olave. That's what he does. That's just sort of the playbook. That's just, again, Dalton's a veteran quarterback. He's not just a first read guy. He goes through his progressions. First read usually is Olave. Second read is the other team.
If Jameis Winston was starting this game or is reinserted as the starter, does that move Olave up for you or down?
A little bit, just because I think Winston likes to chuck it
the
deeper.
Depth of passing.
Average at the target. But I think they're both, listen, Dalton took some deep shots against Arizona.
He took them.
He really did.
Yeah, it's like you.
Right?
You just keep shooting from the parking lot.
Right? He's the red rifle. I'm the bald rifle. That's what I am. The balding rifle. But I like the bald rifle.
The bald rifle.
The bald rifle. There you go.
Oh, man.
Yeah, exactly.
My fantasy team might change names from the Red Rifle to the Bald Rifle's opponent.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I like it. Yeah.
We're thinking about it.
Down with a bald rifle.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, arch nemesis.
Arch
the Bald
nemesis.
Rifle.
Yeah.
All right, moving along.
It sounds like the bald rifle sounds like it's an enemy for like Snoopy. Remember, Snoopy always fought the Red Baron.
Yeah, I'm not that young.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say there you go. So like bald rifle. Yeah, he feels like a comic book character. Yeah, exactly. Anyway. So, yeah, I like that. I kind of like that. Yeah, I'm the bald rifle. All right, fair enough.
Lower the bald rifle.
Yeah.
Another one on the love list here. Pat Freiermuth makes it out of concussion protocol. Now reappears on the limited list this week with an ankle issue. It doesn't sound.
It's Wednesday.
Doesn't sound overly serious.
We're taping this. We're doing this show on a Thursday morning. So obviously that's a story that we'll follow here. But as good as the Eagles' defense has been this year, Connor, we always say this. Death taxes start your tight ends against Philadelphia. Eagles have allowed 10 or more tight end targets each of the last 2 games. You think about week 6 against the Cowboys, they allowed 72 yards to the Dallas Cowboys tight ends with Cooper Rush onto her center as well. And so Pat Freiermuth, who in his 5 full games has at least 9 targets in 3 of them. He's got a 23% target share. It does seem like there's more of a connection between him and Kenny Pickett than there was under Trubisky. And so, yeah, Freiermuth is a top 5 play for me this week at the tight end position.
I like that one a lot. Him and Pickett just look to be in sync. Obviously, Pickett is really liking throwing across the middle of the field or throwing back shoulder to George Pickens. That's the Kenny Pickett playbook right now. So
pretty much.
Good news for those guys.
Yes.
And we'll get into why it's not good news for somebody later in just a bit. A couple others receiving votes here. DJ Moore.
Yeah. Undertaker gift, back alive.
Yeah.
P.J. Walker, thank God for P.J. Walker. And his 2 starts, a 40% target share for DJ Moore. Over the last 4 weeks, Falcons allowed the most receptions to wide receiver. He comes inside my top 20. Brandon Cooks, we talked about him yesterday. I said I wanted to keep it open and not close it out on Brandon Cooks over the last 4 weeks. I like this matchup with the Titans. Tennessee bottom 5 in terms of most receptions and yards allowed to opposing wide receivers. He's had at least a 20% target share in 5 out of 6 games so far this year. So Cooks is wide receiver 24 for me. Brandon Ayuk, there's a much more of a connection between him and Garoppolo than there ever was between him and Trey Lance. Back-to-back games now with 11 targets as Debo deals with that hamstring injury. Rams along the second most yards after catch to wide receivers, and we know that's what Kyle Shanahan likes to do, get his guys in space and let them take care of those yards after the catch. Ayuk has at least 25 yards after catch in 4 straight. And with the Rams probably trying to figure out how do we stop Christian McCaffrey, I think Ayuk could be due for some nice big plays. He's a wide receiver 4 with upside. He comes in at 31 for me. Finally, Irv Smith, as we just talked about good matchups for tight ends. Arizona has allowed either 5 or more catches or 50 or more yards to a tight end in every game this year except for 1. They've given up the most tight ends to oppose. They're tied for the most touchdowns allowed to opposing tight ends. The Arizona Cardinals. We saw Juwan Johnson get the 2 against them last week as well. So Irv Smith, who has 5 straight games with a double-digit target share, I think is on your streaming radar. He comes in at tight end 10 for me in a week in which you've got no Travis Kelce or Gerald Everett.
Yeah, streaming option if you have it out there. All right, moving over to the hate list. We hinted at this one, Diontae Johnson.
Yeah.
It has not been great for Diontae Johnson since Kenny Pickett took over. Really hasn't been great for Diontae Johnson in the Steelers' offense this week, and Philadelphia's corners are really good.
There was a year a couple years ago where the Chiefs went the entire season without throwing a touchdown to a wide receiver. Do you remember that?
I do remember this.
Right, and so suddenly it's like Chiefs East because Diontae Johnson is the only wide receiver in the NFL with over 50 targets and 0 touchdowns so far this year. We expect him to be shadowed by Darius Slay in this one.
Tough matchup.
He has 43 total yards after the catch this season, so he's catching it and being tackled immediately. And so Philadelphia, which allows the lowest catch rate to perimeter wide receivers, I think this is a tough matchup for Diontae Johnson. Maybe junk time volume gets him there, but he comes in at wide receiver 25 for me, outside my top 20, more of a flex than the kind of locked-in mid-tier wide receiver 2 he's been much of his career.
The Jaguars take on the Broncos in London this weekend, and the bottom line is, for quarterbacks and wide receivers, seeing Denver has been a disaster, and it feels like that spells bad news for Christian Kirk.
They're really good against the slot, which is where Kirk lines up most of the time here. They allow the 3rd fewest yards per game to the slot. They've given up zero touchdowns to the slot as well. Broncos, in fact, have given up only 1 touchdown. Count them, 1 touchdown. One touchdown.
No-fly zone.
1 touchdown. It's a no-fly zone there for the Denver Broncos. Let's ride? Not if you're Christian Kirk. They've given up 1 touchdown this entire year to a wide receiver. That was Brandon Ayuk in Week 3. In fact, only 3 times this entire year has a wide receiver gotten over 60 yards against the Denver Broncos. And so Christian Kirk, who has under 25 yards in 2 of his last 3 games, makes the hate list this week. He comes in at wide receiver 30 for me in the London game.
The Darren Waller roller coaster continues, whether we know or not he's going to play, he's going to practice. Feels like he's not going to ever practice, but if he's going to play, he makes the hate list for you. It does sound like he's trending in the right direction for this one, but it doesn't really sound like that means great news for him either way.
He's had 1 game this year. I mean, it's been all Devontae Adams, and also they're running the ball so effectively. They haven't had Josh Jacobs is having a monster year, so they haven't had to throw nearly as much. And so you've got a decreased passing attack, and then you've got much more target competition in Devontae Adams. You add all that to the fact that Darren Waller hasn't been healthy this year. And oh, by the way, now he has to play the Saints, as New Orleans is top 5 in the NFL in terms of both fewest catches and fewest yards allowed to opposing tight ends. They have yet to let a tight end score a touchdown against them so far this year. In fact, only 1 tight end this entire season has more than 25 yards against the Saints. So Darren Waller, who may not be 100% and has only 1 game this year with more than 50 yards, he makes the hate list. He's outside my top 10.
If you haven't heard yet, Barry, Jay, the crew, they're going to be in Buffalo on Sunday for fantasy football pregame.
Yeah.
11 to 1 Eastern time. Matthew Berry is going through a flaming table.
Absolutely. The bald rifle.
The bald rifle joins the mafia.
Will be shot through a flaming table. Come out, come all to Highmark Stadium there in Buffalo. I think we're in where the campers are. I think we're in the camper section.
That's where things get.
That's where the
ketchup goes flying.
Yeah,
you know the deal.
Wait to see Bill's Mafia live and in person, 11 a.m. Eastern. And if you can't be with us in Buffalo, please tune in. It's on Peacock. Second hour, noon to 1, is streaming also on CNBC. So it's the entire show's on Peacock. Second hour is on CNBC, and we are live from Buffalo this Sunday. So if you're in the area, come out, be a part of the show. We'd love to see you.
When we're back, love-hate continues for the quarterbacks.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.